Father Nation.com. Father Nation.com.
Jesse Foster welcomes you to Father Nation, where other dads illuminate your path to become a better father. Prepare to enter into the man cave.
And welcome to Father Nation. This is Jesse Foster. On Father Nation, I interview dads from around the world about how to be a better dad, talking about the successes that make us better, the failures that we learn from. And Father Nation today is also made possible in part by Al Cole. He's from CBS Radio, and his nationally syndicated show People of Distinction is on the Al Cole People of Distinction Broadcasting Network, on the iTunes Radio Network, and on the Live 365 Network. Today on the show, I'm excited to have Brian Salmon. He's from San Antonio, and he's a doula. His website, thebirthguy.com. Again, thebirthguy.com. He's got 2 daughters, ages 5 and 10, and he's actually starting a new website this very month, rockingdads.com. Brian, thank you so much for coming on Father Nation. And let's just kind of talk about what led you to be the man you are today.
Jesse, that's a loaded question. Hi, and good morning. Well, to be the man I am today, I've been through a lot with being a father, being a single dad, and being a mentor to a lot of dads. I work with over 100 dads a month currently and over 250 couples a month in my practice. So, geez, what a long journey to get here, huh?
Absolutely. And you're a doula, right?
I am a doula. So what that means is that I'm actually one of five to six here in the United States that I know of anyway, that are male doulas. So we attend births with moms and dads and help them bring their baby into the world the way that they choose. And it's a very fulfilling, interesting, great job. But what I really love doing is working with the dads ahead of time and getting them to be that partner for their partner that is really focused and ready to go ahead and be the best support that they possibly can be to welcome their baby into the world.
Yeah, a lot of dads really might, I include myself in this, we weren't quite sure how to support our partners when they're pregnant or when they're giving birth especially. Maybe what's one of your tips for dads that have partners or wives expecting?
Well, it starts way before you actually get in the birth room, right? Because suddenly you're pregnant, you get the pregnancy stick, and it's like, wow, what's going on here? And you realize that things are going to change. One of the biggest tips I can give is really that you can't build a house on sand. And you'll hear me say that over and over again through different things that I'm involved in, because it's so important that people know that they have to have a good foundation in order to truly be the parent and the partner that they want to be, so that they can get through things together as a team and not having, those little things that are nagging, causing distance in between the relationship.
And you're also a lactation counselor. And can you tell us how any tips there for dads who might have a nursing wife?
Well, gee whiz, it starts really early once again with education. Education is the key to birthing, to pregnancy, to lactation, because the more you know, the easier it is for you to really dive in and have some confidence and have your feet on the ground when you're doing it. For dads, it's very important that they understand the most vulnerable spots that moms have, which would probably be when baby first arrives and you get that immediate skin to skin. I'm sure you know about this, Jesse, but for all the dads out there, this is one of the most important parts of the birth process. The baby needs to actually come out from mom, and whether it's a cesarean delivery or a vaginal birth, get right on mom's chest. And that's where baby's supposed to be, because of all the changes that have occurred in mom's boobs. It's very evident that this is the target spot. So moms get insecure at first because they want to feed their baby right away. And you have to know babies are going to tell you when they're ready to eat. They have to come out, Jesse. They have to familiarize. You've been through this with your kids, right? And and they have to get comfortable. Then they're going to give you what's called the rooting reflex. That's the time when to really start feeding the baby. And the rooting reflex is when they make their hands into a tight fist, they stick their tongue out, and they snap their lips like that. And that usually means they're about ready to eat. But you can't just stick them right on the end of the nipple. And for dads, this is the main part right here, to watch where mom is getting that latch and to really achieve a deep, good latch where it's really important to seek out information on that so these dads can really support mom. But moms always think they're not getting enough food to their baby, especially during the colostrum phase. This is before the real milk comes in. And it's dad's job to remind them that they only need about a half a teaspoon per feeding, and that if they're peeing and pooping, that they're in good shape. So knowing some of these little facts for dads really make them the cooler, because, of course, they're the biggest factor here, right, that mom looks towards. You agree with that, Jesse?
I think I would. I mean, when I was in the hospital room with my wife and she was giving birth, I was kind of pretty clueless, I have to admit, especially the first time. And I didn't know what was happening. And when the baby was coming out, I was, I never experienced a birth before, so I was freaking out. And it was a normal birth, but for me, it was something that was, I wasn't sure if it was okay, if a baby, as it was, and I was, once the baby was out, I wasn't sure what to do. And so I think a lot of guys can benefit from actually studying more before it happens, and rather than be like me and go in clueless.
Well, Jesse, in our community here, and now we're launching kind of internationally and on the web, the Rocking Dads program that I created is for that very reason. In the Rocking Dads class, which is at the major hospital systems here in San Antonio, and like I said, I work with a lot of men every month. I teach dads that the space really does have a place for them, and that, through working on your relationship and making sure all your communication is becoming more open, and your communication with your physician or birth worker, your midwife, is very open and honest, and you find out your alliances, so to speak, and then getting into understanding what pregnancy is, how to write a birth plan. When I give these dads the task of writing the birth plan and explaining to them how a birth plan works and what a logical flow is, they just love it, because suddenly they're like, I get to put my foot down in here and discuss things with my partner, and we get to come up with something that is our ultimate goal. Although I teach them to be flexible and not really rely totally on that being the one and only path, it's nice to know that you have some sort of a goal, aligned with your partner in your birth. And dads are so much more helpful to the nurses when they understand early labor, non-medical interventions, medical interventions, active labor, which is the one that's crazy. And I'm sure you can agree with me on this, Jesse, when moms can't talk through contractions and they're going, it's definitely, a time for dads to get strong, and then understanding how breastfeeding works and being able to be that partner that can help and keep mom feeling confident in what she's doing, and support her and tell her how beautiful she is and love on her. There's so much that I love teaching these guys. And, in about 3.5, 4 hours, we get a ton done. And I've never had anybody leave a class.
My dad was telling me one time about the birth of my sister, and I guess she came out with a cord around her neck and kind of was blue in the face or something. And so my dad actually fainted, and the doctor was telling one of the midwives there to, go over and help him. He's on the floor now. And so
that's a typical thing. I tell guys to make sure that there's someone, they have somewhere to sit if they need to sit. If they feel it, they got to just go with it and not try and be too tough. There's a lot of emotion going on, huh, Jess?
Yeah, for sure. And as the birth guy, I'm sure you've witnessed now hundreds, if not thousands, of births. Has there been any stress in that, though, sometimes? Have you ever witnessed something that actually did stress you out, and how did you handle that?
Well, in a professional capacity, when you're there and you see things kind of not going in a favorable way, you have to really put on your hat of let's do what we have to do for this in this moment to make sure things go the the best that they possibly can at the time of a problem. And for me, supporting mom, keeping mom focused, keeping dad focused, and keeping them strong so they can take care of that baby. For instance, there was a particular birth I was at, and it was a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. And we worked very, very hard, and we were towards the end, and that baby, we just could not get that baby to come out with pushing, and the physician I was with is incredibly cool-headed, but that baby was having some trouble, and it was about time to go to a C-section, and that last push got the baby out. But the baby was not looking so good, so the baby had to get to the NICU and have some special attention for a couple of days. And, when a mom and dad see their baby with, not a lot of color and tone in the muscles and not doing the usual, crying and, things that you normally hear, that's very stressful. And for a mother to have to stay there in that room while the baby gets whisked off to the NICU, and usually dad would go with, and in this particular case, of course, dad went, I supported mom, the room gets awfully quiet after all that's done. And that's a lot for someone to process who should be holding their baby at the time. So really, really, for a birth professional, a doula, so to say, to keep their cool and to stay as focused as possible to really get that energy harnessed into the healing of that baby is quite a task. But I believe it's something as a professional you have to learn to do.
Yeah, I guess for dads, just in parenting in general, whenever you're facing a stressful situation, it's best just to try and focus and, do what you need to do to make the situation right, no matter what the situation is. If it's a birth or if it's something else, some sort of danger, you got to keep your focus.
That's an excellent point, Jesse, because it's a rite of passage for mom and for dad, especially with first baby, because they're no longer just going to be a human being walking this planet. They are officially, by the universe, a father or a mother, right? And that comes along with a lot of responsibility. As you know, it's fun, but you're head of household, and you need to protect your family, and staying focused and keeping your cool and trying to be as logical as possible most of the time will outweigh any other type of reaction. And that's a real tough thing to do when things are emotionally fueled and you're scared and there's fear involved, right? So we have a tough job, Jesse. That's why I believe it's so great for dads to get to know each other and to really get peer support from other dads. Have you talked a lot about that recently with any of the guys you've had on, some peer support?
Yeah, some guys have mentioned about some groups on Facebook or just other dads in the neighborhood as far as resources, where if you can have a few guys that you can talk to, oftentimes other dads are some of the best resources available for dads, because you can talk from experience.
Not only are you talking from experience, you can see that everybody has pitfalls, and it's okay to have them, because that's the learning curve, and that's part of parenting. And as parents, we're generally hard on ourselves a lot of the time, and that's a good thing, to keep ourselves in check. But we don't want to not enjoy our fatherhood. Correct?
Absolutely. All right, this is Father Nation. You're listening with Jesse Foster, and today our guest is Brian Salmon. He's from San Antonio. His website, thebirthguy.com. And if you're a dad that has a baby coming up soon and might want to take some classes or get some coaching, head on over to rockingdads.com. Check it out, rockingdads.com. Brian, he's committed to pregnancy support, birth support, babies, breastfeeding, and parenting. To kind of turn the corner here, Brian, let's talk about your own experience as a dad. And let's talk about maybe a habit that you have that you think makes you a better dad.
Oh, man, probably keep... That's such a great question. Oh, my goodness. Well, as a father, probably the best thing that I have is to listen. There's a quote that I heard from Brian Whitman. He's a radio host, and he's also the sidekick to my friend Stu Fishbein. And he used a quote from Rick Dees that was, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You got to use your ears a little more. And sometimes I find I really got to listen. And wait for a minute before I make a decision, especially in a time when things are fueled or my daughters are fighting, or typical children and family dynamics. But really trying to lead by example is probably where I'd say that's the biggest tool, but also the hardest task.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, there's 2 ears and 1 mouth. I like that.
Yes, so I think listening sometimes really makes the difference.
Well, you have 2 daughters, right? Age 5 and age 10.
Well, my 5-year-old would beg to differ because she's almost 6, so I better say she's about 6 right now.
All right.
She's very excited about the birthday. Yes. And I love being a dad to daughters. I think that it's such a treat to watch them and see, how our relationship has grown over the years and through the different phases, and to see the differences in both of my children. And I mean, you can relate to that, right? Their personalities are different, even from straight out of mom. You can just see their facial expressions and how they respond to things. So it's very interesting. I'm very lucky because I've got 2 wonderful daughters who are incredibly confident, and both of them are really outgoing and friendly. So I feel pretty blessed.
Yeah, it is interesting how each child is different, even from a very young age as an infant. You can tell their personalities can be very different. Hey, Brian, let's talk about with your daughters, and you're a doula. Has being a doula helped you being a better dad to them?
It's funny that you asked that, because I was having this thought the other day that, one of my daughters was ill not too long ago, and I feel like my care, it really, really changes over the months, because as a doula, I feel for myself as a professional and as a father and just as a human being in general, that, it's a living, breathing experience. So I'm always open for change, which some people are, some people aren't. I like the being flexible and learning new things. And I feel that, over the last couple of years, especially, my type and style of caring has changed. So I think, yes, it definitely has translated into being a better dad when there's a little more tenderness needed. And like I said, I was a single dad for a while there, and being the main person in the household to take care of the daughters as a father figure, but having to also do the motherly things as well. I think my doula profession really helped lend to that, for sure.
Now, I did see on your website, you do call yourself also a doula.
Yes. Really, it's really funny because I've been calling myself a doula for a while, and I know a couple of my other friends who are male doulas are using that term now. And I was just delighted to see. I have a friend. Okay, let me just tell you, I have this friend, Chris Beluga, and he owns Diaper Dude. And I had one of their first diaper bags. Do you know that brand, Jesse?
I've heard of it, I think, yeah.
They're great bags because they're masculine, and I had a nice camouflage one with an orange dragon on it, and I thought I was the coolest dad, right, 10 years ago. And now he and I are good friends, and he's launching something called True Dude. So everybody's getting the dude thing just keeps going and going. When you're a guy and you're goofing around with other guys, I think it makes it a little easier to say doula sometimes than doula, because they're like, what the heck is a doula? They're all doula. I heard dude in there. I think I can accept that.
Yeah. Yes. No more questions. They know dude.
Well, I'm a surfer for sure, being from California, and I mean, as you can tell, I do not have a Texas accent, although Texas is my home now. So I definitely fall in the dude category.
All right, Brian, well, let's talk about maybe a daddy dud in your parenting past, because none of us are perfect dads. Can you recall a time where maybe you didn't do something as you wanted, but also something you learned?
One thing about my parenting style for me, and what's right for some is not right for others. That's the beauty of birth and childhood and parenting. Everybody's going to kind of have their own thing, and that's their culture that they set up in their family. For me, I thought it was very important for me to be really straightforward with my daughters and be very honest with them. So one thing that I find when I do make a mistake of some sort, if I jump the gun on something, which we all will do as parents, we'll say, well, you need to put that back, blah, 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 whatever the deal is, and depending on the situation. If I do, blow up at my child or assume that they did something they didn't do, I immediately apologize, and I apologize sincerely because I want to teach them character and I want to teach them integrity. And I think that's something that is hard to do because it's hard sometimes to humble yourself and get in that mode. But I definitely think that's an important thing for parenting, to be humble, to be honest, and to apologize and accept your own mistakes as well. Because like I said, leading by example is probably one of the strongest things you can do. And I think when a child looks back on that's probably going to be something that's going to be ingrained in their head that they probably will do with their child as well.
Yeah, for sure. Any those positive things that you do and they see you do will, I think, eventually be ingrained in them over time.
I want to say that it wasn't easy, though. I mean, sometimes you really got to suck it up and apologize.
Yeah, apologizing sometimes can be difficult. Brian, what about a quote on fatherhood? There's so many quotes out there, but perhaps you have your own quote, or maybe you've read someone else that you just want to get out to Father Nation today.
I think a powerful thing to do is to keep your eyes open and see the growth of your child and appreciate who they are as individuals and accept them and nurture them and help them find the strengths that they need to progress in the way that they want. I think that's probably the best advice that I can give.
So kind of just let them be them.
Yeah. We're all individuals. I'm sure, people like you and I, Jesse, who branch out in different ways and express ourselves in a more artistic type of fashion, which you definitely do as the leader of Father Nation, right? And I do in some of the different videos I do and the different ways that I like to express myself. We were all children once, and somehow someone helped us really achieve what we have achieved and helped us become the people that we are today by nurturing us and really letting us, go after the things we want.
Let's kind of go back actually in time now to more your childhood. And did your dad kind of think that you were going to turn out into be a certain profession, or did he try and push you in a certain direction, or did he say, just do whatever you want, follow your heart? And when did you kind of find your calling and to become the birth guy?
Well, I developed the Birth Guy brand about 1.5 years ago, but I'd been in childbirth education for a long time. And going back into births and stuff, my first birth, I was 19. My father, and during my childhood, I kind of ran my own childhood. It was a strange relationship with my parents. My dad was not around very much because you have to think in the 70s, I'm 45, in the 70s, I was born in 69. Most fathers only spent about 5 to 15 minutes with their with their children on average. That's really not a lot of time. And so that was pretty much what my childhood looked like. The person that I really attribute my confidence to and making me do the things that I did was probably my uncle. He was just such a big influence to me. He has 2 daughters as well. He passed away when I was in college, but I mention him all the time. And my middle name is William after him, and I proudly display my middle name or my middle initial in honor of him because he really did give me the confidence to do what I wanted more so than my father did. So, you can only imagine me having children. It's going to go one way or the other, right? I'm either going to be just like my dad or I'm going to be a little different. And I think I've definitely stepped into a completely different direction with my girls. And I'm happy with it. And I really thank my uncle for that.
Yeah, I think every child is influenced by somebody. And if they're not going to be influenced by their dad the most, someone else is going to influence them more. So for if it was your uncle that had a big influence on you, others, it might be the television or a friend or a teacher, but everyone has kind of a big influencer in life. And I think as dads, probably if you're listening to Father Nation, you want to be the big influencer in your child's life. I think to be that big influencer, you have to be around and spending time with your kid, and it can't just be just 10 minutes a day. I don't know if there's a set formula of how much time you need to spend with your child, but I know that time is needed.
Time is needed for their confidence levels. But I'll tell you something. This is an interesting point for me to share with you, Jesse. From my experience in working with dads, over the past decade, I've worked with, I can't even tell you how many families, thousands. And when I'm in a dad's class alone, when I'm doing the Rock Dads class, I'm sitting there and I've got 30 guys in my class, and I go around the room and talk to them. And one of the questions that I ask is, who was your biggest influence as a male, or who was your biggest father figure? And we get some people, which is always in every class, that's remarkable to see, saying their coach, their stepdad, their cousin, their mom, their stepmom, they've got all these influences that really shape them, that they feel into the man that they are today. And to me, that's incredible, but it really helps people open their minds to know that, traditionally, fathers weren't always the ones who were influencing their children. Some guys never met their dads. Some guys met them under really bad circumstances. Some people are just getting to know their father now, their birth father. So it's important to kind of challenge these guys and other fathers out there now today that are having babies or who have babies, who are kind of still trying to find where your feet land on the ground, to be that father, to support your child, to listen to your child, to play with your child, to hug and love them, to discipline your child. There's just a lot that goes along with parenting, and I would say disciplining is the one that I think sucks the most, but because I want to have fun, I want to play all the time and have a good time with my kids, but being a father is an important part, is learning how to discipline, and learning how not to discipline over the top, and how not to discipline under the rug there a little bit. So you have to kind of find that balance in your personality and learn how to keep yourself in check, and how to really teach your child. So there's a lot of different styles out there. You got to pick the one that works for your child's personality and for your household.
Yeah, one size doesn't fit all with parenthood.
Definitely not.
You mentioned some traits there with parenting, like discipline and so forth. If you can just say one trait that you think would be the most needed as a dad, what trait do you think you would choose?
Patience.
Yeah, I get that. I get that a lot, actually, from a lot of dads recently. I think patience is the most common trait when I ask that question as far as what's most needed. Why do you think that is?
I believe it's because, you look at our social influences and the things that are environmental these days, and in looking at that, you can find that other influences can make your fuse a little shorter, or you're tired, or I don't know, you're hungry. You can be hangry, right? The hungry, angry.
Right.
So you never know what's gonna happen or be influencing you, and it's really just that moment of training yourself, kind of Pavlovian. We're all conditioned mammals, right? So we can train ourselves when that feeling comes to just go, okay, I need to think about this. I need to think direct and logically and with compassion at the same time. And that's pretty tough. But I think as we get into that, we can learn how to control some of those environmental stresses by being aware that we're also having to play the role of a parent when we're around our child. And sometimes we forget that. We disconnect because we're just kind of hanging out, and then something happens, and then reactiveness can happen. So cause and effect, right? We have to really watch how we react. That's tough.
Yeah, patience is definitely a great quality, but it's definitely difficult to have. It takes cultivation, I think.
Absolutely.
And Brian, before we finish up this episode of Father Nation, maybe you can tell us maybe one piece of advice that you would like to give Father Nation for all the dads out there, and maybe tell us maybe one piece of advice that you think you've been given over the years that's really helped you.
Sure. I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is to keep doing what you're doing right here in this space and listening and learning and being open to learn and having an open heart and an open mind often generates a lot more than being closed off. You can't plant a great crop in soil that's not ready to that has nutrients it needs. You need those nutrients too by listening and by learning and by peer support. So I think that's just keep doing what you're doing, you guys, this way. And good advice that I've had is to really look at my day and be really grateful. Just be grateful to have these beautiful children, even in the midst of when they're going through their periods of defiance, or they're angry, or they're upset about something. You have to look and be grateful that you've had the opportunity to bring a human being into this world that you can love and teach and mold and really respect that process. And by doing that, I think it gives you a general respect back to the whole realm of being a parent and being able to be a parent. I'm grateful, and I love my girls so much, and they're a big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, for sure. They're the main reason. I think I want to see other parents enjoy their birth, enjoy their parenting, enjoy their breastfeeding, enjoy their pregnancy. And like I said in the beginning, the best thing that does that is just having your relationship solid, or the household that you have a solid, good run. You're responsible for that.
You've been listening today to Father Nation with Jesse Foster and our guest today, Brian Salmon. Dads out there, Father Nation, if you're looking to give your wife some pregnancy support or better birth support, if you have a newborn and look to help with breastfeeding or just parenting in general, head on over to thebirthguide.com. Check out Brian's website. Also, be sure and check out rockingdads.com as well. rockingdads.com. And Brian, again, was a doula in San Antonio, Texas. He helps parents through the birth process. Father Nation, again, is made possible in part by Al Cole from CBS Radio and his nationally syndicated show, People of Distinction. Among the shows heard on Al Cole's network is with actress Dee Wallace, who was on E.T. I'm happy to have Father Nation now airing over the Live 365 network, thanks to Al Cole. And again, Brian Salmon on the show today with birthguide.com, rockingdads.com. Thank you so much for coming on Father Nation.
It was my pleasure. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, guys.
Hey, it's Al Cole, host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, throwing the spotlight on another one of my guests of distinction, this time taking an awesome step forward to great fatherhood in our world with the outstanding work of Jesse Foster. Jesse's the creator of the Father Nation podcast, a show to showcase dads and their committed professional work to help other dads too. Jesse interviews fathers from all over the world to learn from them their deep, dedicated, and sometimes even playful experiences as dads, so that they can share their amazing wisdom with you. In Jesse's own words, let the journeys of dads featured on my Father Nation podcast illuminate your path as a dad too. What could be better? Hey. And if you like the message, I want you to run to this website and support Jesse's Father Nation podcast and the great work of all dads worldwide. Go to fathernation.com. That's www.fathernation.com. And remember, hearing about the successes, the aha moments, and even the occasional failures of other dads can help you avoid their mistakes, emulate their successful strategies, and take action yourself to become a better dad. So again, run to this website, fathernation.com. That's www.fathernation.com. Jesse Foster's Father Nation podcast, helping you to imprint the kind of legacy in your family that you desire to create.